Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another film theory reaction. And this is Bill Cipher actually in love with Ford? Oh, God. You know, I'm gonna be completely honest here. While I have, absolutely no problem with, characters being gay or, bisexual or, whatever flavor of the rainbow you are, the one thing I cannot stand is fandom just like basically depicting every character as gay. And just like something about it where like you have fandoms depicting like every character, no matter what they are, is like, oh, they're gay, they're secretly gay. Oh, what if this character was actually gay and in a relationship with this? But granted, I mean, a lot of that might be just from the fact that when I was younger, I read a lot of fan fiction. So, that might have, colored my perspective a little bit. All that being said, that was just a very long-winded way of saying I'm not really into the idea that saying that, Bill Cipher and Uncle Ford were in a relationship if it wasn't like canonically said in the show. Now, that being said, I have no idea if it has been like stated canonically, like whether it has been said in like on Tumblr or something by like Alex Hirsch or something, saying that it canonically was a thing. But given that the title of this video is hinting at the question asking if Bill Cipher is in love with Ford, I'm gonna say that it wasn't said canonically. So yeah, I really don't have anything else to say on the topic here. So let's see what proof there is to this, if there is any. So yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video will lead to my game theory reaction. And yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
There might be yet another secret hidden in the pages of the Book of Bill. And it all comes down to shipping.
Before we see the thing that Joe drew, I just want to say that this drawing does not reflect the canon of Gravity Falls or the intent of its creator, nor of the Disney Corporation.
Not canon yet.
Believe it or not, this might have huge ramifications on Gravity Falls lore. I kinda love it.
Chat is rejoicing like you just created world peace.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that's love language is acts of making conspiracy boards about cartoons. And hey, welcome back to Romance Month.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was the theme this month.
I wanted to do an entire month of theories all about the season of love. Are some of them admittedly a bit of a stretch to fit into that theme? Maybe. You'll just have to subscribe to find out.
So, one of them is going to be about Fantastic Four, and this one is, I'd imagine, some analog horror series on YouTube. Okay.
Last week we figured out who was the evilest X in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and this week I wanted to revisit the universe of Gravity Falls and the Book of Bill. At this point, Gravity Falls needs a little introduction. This Disney series created by Alex Hirsch is a certified theorist classic, and the fandom was absolutely revitalized last year when they released the Book of Bill, a semi-autobiography written by the franchise's main villain, two-dimensional demon, Bill Cipher. And just before we move forward, as always, shoutouts to the incredible community over on the Gravity Falls subreddit and Discord who came together to help decode all of the puzzles in this book. Seriously, go check out those communities if you want to be amongst the first to solve any new puzzle. But okay, how are we possibly going to talk about this in Romance Month? Well, see, in our first Book of Bill theory, we speculated that one of the characters speaking to us in code throughout its pages was a character named Jessobrom the Unswerving, also known as the Oracle. This is a character that first appeared in Journal 3 and only kinda sorta cameos in the Book of Bill if you like squint a little bit. We've also connected some dots and speculated that Jessie here may have also been Bill's ex-girlfriend, but there were some within the community that disagreed with that interpretation. While everyone is on the same page that Bill clearly has an ex, it's made pretty obvious in the book, others believed that Bill didn't have an ex-girlfriend, but instead an ex-boyfriend. A character we know all too well, Stanford Pines.
There's no match for my gun, you idiot!
So, first of all, this is great. Though I picked up on the bickering ex energy that Bill and Ford were giving off, an actual, literal romantic relationship relationship was a possibility and perspective I didn't really consider when I was first diving into the Book of Bill. Like, to me, it seems like something that Disney would be a bit too cowardly to actually explore. Regardless, I want to thank you guys for opening my eyes to the possibility. Plus, I think it's great that there are multiple solutions out there for these sorts of puzzles, and there's absolutely a place for competing ideas in these sorts of spaces. After all, everything we do is just a theory, and there can be multiple solutions to unanswered questions. And I gotta say, after sitting down and looking at the evidence, there's a ton of it for both Jesse and Ford being the ex-lover referenced in the book. So today, I wanted to really put our all-seeing pyramid eyes up to a microscope and examine both of these answers to see which one holds up better, if either of them do. Yep, that's right, friends. Today we're finally doing another Morty. Well, I guess it's not really a Morty anymore. What did Tom call these over on Game Theory? Oh yeah, here's my absolute trash take on this really cool idea from the community. Here's, let me scribble that out and replace that with theorist, and voila, brand synergy.
Leave your theories in the comments or subreddit. I'll pick my favorite in the next episode of Trash.
To kick things off, I think it's worth going back over our original interpretation and adding some additional evidence for it. In case you need a catch up, in our Book of Bill videos, I proposed that Bill Cipher's ex-lover was Jessel Brom the Unswerving. But who exactly is this mysterious oracle, and what was leading us to that conclusion? Well, for starters, the Book of Bill heavily implies that Bill is hiding a past relationship from us, the readers, throughout its pages. In the My Exes section of the book, he crosses out the first few lines of text, insisting that his former relationships aren't relevant or even existent. Yeah, sure, buddy, I do think the triangle doth protest too much. It's clear that this is just another instance in a long line of Bill avoiding and confronting some difficult emotions. Now, the identity of this ex Bill clearly has is left up to interpretation. It could be Ford, it could be Jesse, it could be the howling void that he had a situationship with in a one-time coffee date. Even if a barcode in the love section of this book reads, "I miss the void when scanned." Yeah, I miss the void too, buddy, even if I stare into it every day. So why did I think it was referring to Jesse? Well, a few reasons. Big one, basically two of the only places in the entire book that Bill tries to scribble over information and make you as a reader move on are the sections involving his exes and the page revealing Jesse as one of the henchmaniacs. Yeah, in the section of the Book of Bill where we're introduced to Bill's friends and villainous crew of goons called the henchmaniacs, one of them is curiously scribbled over with red ink. While it's difficult to make out, if you look closely, you can see that this picture is clearly supposed to be Jessel Brom.
Yeah, I mean, you can see, you know, there's the hood. It's like, I mean, obviously this is a monochrome, but, you know, there's obviously not human skin color. And, I mean, you can see, like, the little bit of, like, a triple group of eyes right here, like, on the left side of her head. And given that they look like they're off-center, that would kind of extrapolate that, you know, it's just a little bit of this entire group right here.
And her name, Jessie, is clearly short for that full name. It really stuck out to me that Bill had basically the same reaction, telling us that both his ex and Jessie were unimportant or not relevant when basically nothing else in the book is. But on top of that, Jessie also has a lot of knowledge about Bill, more than most people in this universe probably could or should. Jessel Brom the Unswerving, aka the Oracle, first appeared in Journal 3, another real-life canon publication that Disney put out about Gravity Falls. During Ford's travels, he came across Jesse in Dimension 52, where she nursed him back to health after he was attacked by razor-sharp shapes in the 2D dimension.
Actually think about it. Does that mean that, you know, she's from DC or something like that, given that their whole thing was like DC Action 52 or something for a while there?
While she only had 2 pages in the journal, Jessel Brom's impact on the Gravity Falls lore was huge. We're told that, quote, she had some stunning insight about Bill, end quote, and intimately knew his history, how he killed his family and destroyed his home dimension. She also knew his weaknesses, and Jesse is also responsible for putting the metal plate in Ford's head that prevents Bill from re-entering his mind. She basically gave Ford the key to defeating Bill. So that then begs the question, how does she know so much about Bill? Well,
yeah, I mean, that definitely adds some proof to there being some rather intimate pillow talk at the very least, you think?
Well, one explanation could be that all of her insight comes from her clairvoyant powers. I mean, you don't get a
yeah,
title like
definitely
Oracle
too,
for
yeah.
nothing. If you don't know, an Oracle is someone who is able to speak prophecy. They can see the future, more or less. This traces its roots back to the Oracles of Delphi, ancient Greek priestesses who were thought to channel the foresight of the god Apollo for visitors who made the difficult climb up Mount Parnassus. This connection between the ancient Greek myth and Jessobram is furthered by her home Dimension 52 being depicted as a temple atop a mountain, just like the Oracles of Delphi. But as we learn in the Book of Bill, Jessie's stunning insight into Bill isn't just the result of her clairvoyance. No, she has first-hand experience of the Triangular Menace. Remember how we just talked about Jessie originally being part of the Henchmaniacs crew?
Yeah.
Well, while her entry is noted as unimportant, her hidden blurb hints that this couldn't be further from the truth. She was very important to Bill's crew. It's hard to make out exactly, but Reddit user Blackberry Lulu did a pretty good job translating it as the smartest one. Figured out horizontal dimensional portals. Who needs her? Too many eyes.
Horizontal dimensional portals? As opposed to vertical ones? What's the difference there?
Anyway, yeah, don't need her or her portals. Sure thing, bud. Don't know about you, but to me, that does sound pretty spiteful ex-adjacent. Angry ex-friend at the very
much
least.
so,
and
yeah.
since they parted ways, Jessie has been doing so much work against Bill. We've already talked about how she nursed Ford back to health and gave him the power to resist Bill's abilities, but that's only scratching the surface. On the shaman page of the Book of Bill, there's a hidden code that translates to, which henchmaniac ratted me out? Well, Jessie used to be a henchmaniac, and given that this is on a page about Modoc the Wise, the first human Bill tried to sucker into building a portal for him, seems like she might have helped him out here too in the same way she helped Ford, and the same way she gave us the coordinates to Reality 34 where Bill has no powers. We talked about that in a previous theory. Whether you believe that this was a romantic relationship or not, clearly Jessie hit a sore spot beneath Bill's bricks. Even if they weren't entangled, so to speak, I would be confident saying that she was likely one of his favorite henchmaniacs, if not the favorite. Her defining trait as the smartest one would be very attractive to Bill. Time and time again, Bill has sought out history's greatest minds, not just because they could aid him in building the portals, but because they could understand him on an intellectual level. Remember, Bill's backstory is one of an outcast mutant, someone who could see beyond his reality, and before he became the villain we know and love to hate, he just wanted his family to understand him and his worldview. Before he murdered them all, of course. So much of Bill.
And if I remember correctly from the last theory, it's hinted at that that not only has everybody he's ever killed still inside his head, and possibly might be like trying to nudge, like trying to alter his his actions enough to, you know, basically self-sabotage, but he also may in fact still hear their screaming.
Bill's core motivation comes from that loneliness and seeking others who could see from his perspective. To me, the hyper-intelligent Jessie is a clear candidate for the most important person in Bill's life during his quote-unquote glory days. And again, why a romantic connection there made so much sense to me. But perhaps I'm reading into a toxic partnership that was never a toxic romance, because as we said at the top of the episode, a lot of theorists have pointed out that there's a bunch of evidence showing that Ford Pines is actually Bill's big ex. So what is that evidence?
Okay, what is this
to start
proof?
out, before meeting Bill, Ford was extremely lonely. He was unable to connect with people, partially because he lacked people skills and partially because his intellect alienated him from others. But after meeting Bill, Ford's journal entries light up with excitement. There's a marked shift in his worldview. He writes that meeting this extra-dimensional deity of knowledge was the greatest day of his life, and the two seem to hit it off immediately. Ford is in awe of Bill's wit, intelligence, and humor. Early on, he can't help but repeat "what a guy" while complimenting his new pal, though this is scribbled out by the time we read the journal entries.
Yeah.
Likewise, Bill repeatedly compliments Ford's talents and smarts, and the two often find themselves thinking the same thing.
Though, I mean, admittedly, can you think of this as being, you know, actually genuine, is the question. Because, you know, as it's been shown, Bill's main thing was getting the portals up and running so that he could enter, you know, three-dimensional space properly. And as stated, Ford had, like, no people skills. Being so smart, probably somewhere on the autism spectrum, which, you know, as a side effect means you have trouble reading people's, you know, emotions and intentions. I mean, I'm a very edge case when it comes to having Asperger's. But, like, for the longest time when I was a little kid, like, the biggest thing was, like, I could not pick up sarcasm for the life of me. I took everything literally. And I know, everybody's different, so so who's to say that, Ford just, had excessive trouble, like, telling if somebody was taking advantage of him.
At one point, Bill even says, "I'm starting to like you, Sixer," and Ford responds, "I'm starting to like you, Bill." Now, it's difficult to say whether Bill is being sincere here or
exactly
just
my
manipulating
point.
Ford, but I think both of these guys did feel somewhat relieved to find someone to connect with on a meaningful level after being alone for so long. In the love section, Bill describes human beings as a lonely species and views them as weak for wanting to form relationships, but I believe this is just more proof that he's insulting a feeling that he's unwilling to admit that he also experiences. I mean, just look back at the series. Though he doesn't explicitly say it, Bill has clearly been lonely in his life, in his home dimension.
But I wasn't always this way. Imagine living in the second dimension. Flat minds in a flat world with flat dreams.
But okay, that's some small stuff. What about something bigger? Well,
yeah.
A year into their relationship, Ford begins describing Bill as his muse, citing all of the wonderful ways Cipher changed his life for the better. If you don't know, muse, along with being a really solid band, is a word that is used to refer to someone or something that provides an artist with creative inspiration. Pretty much anyone or anything can be a muse. A person, a cat, a rock, the sky. As long as it can make you feel inspired and creative, it can be your muse. But while the term is often used platonically, it's also often used romantically. Like, you know what a common source of creative inspiration throughout the ages has been? Someone you have a crush on, an unrequited love, your partner. There's a reason why there's a billion love songs out there, people. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention the historic use of the term muse in a romantic sense within the gay community. For example, it's thought that famous Renaissance artist Michelangelo found a muse in a young nobleman named Tommaso de Cavalieri. The relationship between the two was said to have inspired many of Michelangelo's works, including poems and letters and drawings. Some have gone as far as to theorize that the famous statue of David was modeled after Cavalieri's own body. Dang, good on you, Cavalieri. Keep up the workout routine. So, when you look at the Book of Bill again with that context, it absolutely seems like Ford is using the term muse with that romantic connotation, describing a relationship between himself and Bill that seems more than platonic. Ford gushes.
Just continuing on from my, thing I was talking about before at the beginning of this reaction about how I didn't like how seemingly some fandoms made, like, everybody gay or something like that. Part of the reason thinking about it is, one, I mean, like, while I am completely understand, for the longest time there wasn't, proper representation and, everybody wants to feel represented in the media they consume. There was also the whole thing where, I mean, thinking about it, it was very much, and granted, like, this is coming from somebody where if you look at my old, like, fan fiction account, I'd scarcely believe that, like, 85 to 90% of all the stories I ever favorited and read were, like, romance stories in some way. At the same time, there was the whole thing of where, and arguably it still kind of does exist now, where there was just the complete lack of, like, platonic, like, friendships and, like, other platonic relationships in, like, media. Like, I mean, for the longest time, like, if there was a boy or if there was a male character and a girl character, they were inevitably going to hook up and be married or stuff like that because, they're a boy and a girl. They have to. Or, like, to the other side of that, if it's a guy and a guy, it's not like guys can be friends if they're hanging out with each other and enjoy each other's company. That must mean that they're gay for each other. It's just, I'm fully aware that my opinion on this matter might be colored by the fact that I read that of my just overexposure to fan fiction at such a young age. But again, why does everyone have to be gay in some of these, like, fandoms?
Is that Bill picks him up when he's down, calms him down when he's anxious. Bill helps Ford stand up for himself when someone insults him and even leads him to the coordinates of new paranormal discoveries. Ford also claims that Bill has given him the ability to see an eighth color of the rainbow that normal people aren't able to see. That does seem pretty gosh darn romantic, and very much a way to literally get someone to see
So, like,
the world
ultraviolet?
in a brand new way, a common way people describe their outlook on life changing after entering a relationship. But the metaphors don't stop there, my friends. After feeling disappointed that no one remembered his birthday, Ford learns that Bill possessed a swarm of rats that spell out his name as a present. Afterwards, Bill offers to get Ford drunk and enter his mind, and once he eventually accepts, things get crazy. Apparently, quote, one thing led to another, end quote. Yeah, that is definitely cartoon code for they got it on. At least mentally. Afterwards, Ford confesses that this Bill guy, he's really got it all figured out. Which is interesting because Bill describes Ford as pansexual. Basically, he's attracted to logic and preparation and planning. Ford saying that Bill's got it all figured out really hints that he's attracted to Bill and his unique brand of planning. In this instance, his elaborate rat birthday gift for Ford. And though he was an evil, spiteful little creature, Bill clearly did return Ford's affections to some degree, evidenced by his reaction after their falling out. After their breakup, Bill wrote, I know Sixer loved our will they won't they destroy the universe relationship. This was just our way of keeping things spicy. That's obviously a pun on the idea of will they won't they relationships, a common tactic used in sitcoms and in this context, Bill doesn't want to believe Ford is gone for good because a part of him feels lost without their relationship. And in order to prove how not upset he was, Bill decided to drown his sorrows at a dive bar called O'Sadley's multi-dimensional pub at the rock-bottom asteroid belt in the Vicious Spiral Nebula. A witness later claimed that Bill tried to order one sixer at the bar before bursting into tears. Yeah, don't know about you, but I don't normally sob my way to the bottom of a White Claw unless I'm going through it in a breakup. And just the cherry on top here, if you type in divorce or breakup into the computer on thisisnotawebsite.com, it takes you directly to the logo for O'Sadley's. I mean, even Mabel straight up calls Bill a super needy ex and gives him a few tips to get over Grunkle Ford while also instructing him to go crush on someone else's uncle or even to avoid uncles altogether for a while. And finally, if we want to bring in some out-of-canon evidence too, Alex Hirsch himself has said that he used real-life breakups as inspiration for the dynamic between Bill and Ford. At his In Motion 2024 panel in London, he said,
I asked myself, what would the relationship between a demon and his dupe be like? I thought it would be tumultuous and it might remind me of the worst relationships. If you're looking for a really, really messy relationship, rather than typing demon, maybe type breakup and see what you see online.
Basically, he's saying that people often speak worse about their exes sometimes than they would literal, actual demons, and he used that as inspiration for how he thought Bill and Ford would treat each other. And I mean, this does pretty much check out in the show. Though they were kind of long distance before the show, just look at how Bill treats Ford when they actually see each other IRL in Weirdmageddon.
Good old Six Fingers. I've been waiting an eternity to have a chat face to face.
He's cruel to Ford and beats him up, clearly trying to let his aggression out, just like a toxic ex would. With all of this overwhelming evidence, the way they talk and think about one another, the work they did together, the affection they showed to one another, how Bill reacted after they fell out, and the real-world inspiration for their relationship, I think I have to say that the community's right on this one. There's more than enough to say that Bill and Ford were romantically entangled, and that both still have rough feelings over the breakup. So, thank you. Thank you all for pointing this out to me and for helping me see it. You're awesome, and this is why I love theorizing communities. And yet, I don't think that that's the whole story. In fact, I think this is a rare case where two theories are actually correct at the same time. That Bill actually dated both Jesse and Ford at different points in his life. Hear me out. I don't think that anyone would argue against the fact that if Bill and Ford were in a relationship, that it was an incredibly toxic one. Bill is not a good guy and absolutely used abusive tactics on Ford. Sure, Bill sometimes returns Ford's affections. He calls him cutesy nicknames like Fordsy, but he's also neglectful. While they were together, when Bill was inside of Ford's mind, Ford felt unstoppable. But when Bill takes extended trips away, disappearing for weeks or months at a time, Ford starts to question himself and his worth. Bill refuses to return, even when Ford clearly needs help, and Bill knows that. Bill calls Ford his property, taking control of his body without permission and physically abusing him. He threatens to go find another partner if Ford doesn't do what he wants, and guilt trips him for trying to form close relationships with other people like McGucket instead of focusing on building a portal for Bill. Looking at it through that lens, all of the ego-stroking compliments Bill delivered at the beginning of their relationship looks a lot lot like love bombing or manipulation. But here's the thing. According to Gretchen Shaw, Associate Director of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, if abusers don't seek counseling or work on themselves to change, they most likely never will. So, Bill, unless he really tries, he's going to continue to be abusive in his relationships, and more than likely was abusive in his previous relationships. Like, say, maybe his first relationship. Though it isn't the same for everyone, some people don't feel romantic love for their entire lives. It's statistically common that a person will first fall in love during their late teens and early 20s. That makes sense. This is a period in a person's life where they're finding independence for the first time outside of their family units. For Bill, this was probably right after he destroyed his universe, when he recruited the Henchmaniacs. And according to Catherine Loveday, professor of neuropsychology at the University of Westminster, first loves are important experiences because they impact a person's development. How you come to intimately trust someone outside of your immediate circle for the first time can change how you form those relationships for the rest of your life. So, to me, while Ford makes sense as Bill's most recent relationship, it makes sense to me that Jesse fits into the role of Bill's first love. I mean, he's old, like really old, so of course he would have
rather
had previous
ageless, I would imagine.
Jesse was basically the idealized version of what we know Bill finds interesting in a potential partner, romantic or otherwise. She was hanging out with him a lot during the period that was equivalent to Bill's late teens or early 20s, when he would have been psychologically impacted by their relationship. She knows things about Bill that only an intimate partner, or at the very least someone he acutely trusted would, as evidenced by the fact that she knows how Bill destroyed his home dimension, a memory that he tries to keep repressed. It just all lines up. It makes sense. But just like a lot of other first loves, it didn't last. Jesse became fed up with Bill's manipulative, destructive, and self-serving antics, and ended up reporting him to Time Baby before using her ability to create portals to flee to safety. And this falling out seemed to be foundational to Bill's psychology about love and romance. When you read through the pages where Bill describes the feelings of love, you can see how his experiences taught him that love is a weapon. He believes that love is a scam, a trick, an industry, a way to brainwash people. Love is a sales pitch. You are the product and your crush is the customer. It's up to you to do whatever it takes, using any means necessary to get them to invest. Most importantly though, Bill says that fear and love are right next to each other in the brain, and notes that most humans can't even tell the difference. He even recommends faking vulnerability to attract a partner. That's why he uses a combination of affection and fear to manipulate his marks. He confuses their hearts and forces them to bend to his whims. And doesn't that sound exactly like what he was doing to Ford? So think about it. If Jesse was Bill's first love, and that relationship was anything like what we see with Bill and Ford, then it would explain why Jesse is so hell-bent on stopping Bill even thousands of years after they split ways. Just as Bill was Ford's abuser, he was almost certainly Jesse's too. And honestly, if both of these theories are right, if they can coexist, it makes for a much more multi-layered story. It gives so much more color and history and depth, ironically enough, to Bill, Jesse, and Ford. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up next on Film Theory.
Oh, God. So, I mean, there could be some, actual proof behind it. Granted, I mean, we'll have to see in, like, whatever future Gravity Falls media that there is. I have no idea. Are they going to make a movie, a new show? I mean, I'd like either. It's been a long time since I've seen Gravity Falls. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. So, yeah, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it yet for some reason. Corner video will link to my game theory reaction. And yeah, with all that out of the way, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.